Back in Mexico, we'd had a call. Our observer contact had returned from another long fishing trip. Would he talk with us? How many dolphins were really dying during MSC certified tuna fishing operations in the Pacific? We waited in the fishing harbor for a contact man. The observer had accepted as an intermediary. Alejandro Villalobos Diaz, a man known here by all. He was director of the Fishery Authority of the state of Sinaloa. Now, he's retired and consults with the small-scale fishermen who feel abandoned by the government.
Soon, thousands here will be unemployed.
And there will be many dead in robberies. How are the people supposed to survive?
In the 80s, the tuna that were discharged here weighed in at 150 kilos on average. In the 90s, they were already much smaller, 70 kilos. And in the 2000s, they weigh just 25 to 30 kilos, very many juveniles. The MSC assessors can say what they will. If this keeps up, it will eventually lead to the extinction of tuna fish.
Alejandro Villalobos wanted to help us and gave the observer another call. But he had gotten cold feet, wasn't prepared to talk to us after all.
Listen, they just want to talk to you. We could meet them for breakfast. What do you think? There won't be any cameras. No one will know your name. Yes. Yes, I understand that. Take care. The situation is complicated. He said he had to sign a confidentiality agreement. If he violates it, he could be punished under Mexican law. So they all keep their mouths shut. And he would also face other threats besides. If it were to come out that someone had talked, during the next voyage, about 40 days out at sea, he would have to reckon with constant serious threats of being thrown overboard, things like that. He'd experienced that himself.
Then we got good news for a change. An invitation from Manzanillo, 500 kilometers to the south, to see Antonio Suarez, the king of tuna, whom we'd met at the conference in Vigo. He said he'd allow us to shoot in the harbor of his tuna factory, part of Suarez's holding company, Grupo Mar. The 𝐏𝐵𝐭 had just come into port, a fishing vessel with the MSC seal. A ship like this cost $30 million. The Mexican government had subsidized its construction. Here, valuable yellowfin tuna is unloaded. We wanted to go on board to talk to the crew, or with the observer who was along for the trip to count the dead dolphins. But the company's press officer said, out of the question. In the end, we were allowed to interview the captain, Jose.
No one protects the dolphins more than we do. We have them to thank for the tuna you saw out there. How could we not love them? That says it all.
How many dolphins die in one pool, on average?
Los carrómeros?
Those were a little off the questions that you've sent, and these are questions for scientists, so...
No, as the captain, he should just tell us what he sees, knows. Okay, another question. Even if it's not many, how do the dolphins die?
Wilfred, if you'd like to speak with Jose, it's not fair to put people on camera without giving them the questions before. It's not respectful. If you had sent that, then maybe he could answer it.
It's in the list. I just ask him what he sees, what happens on board, and why still dolphins die. That is a very simple question for somebody who is on board. Scientists are not on board except the observer, and they don't have the right to speak with us. So I ask the captain. It's not credible.
One more question, and then we'll just end this.
There's
That's not respectful.
If dolphins injure themselves in the net, what happens to them?
I wouldn't know that, but my people down in the nets do everything possible to save the dolphins.
You're not asking any of the questions that were on the list.
Nada más. Pero que te voy a decir que esto que I have nothing more to say. Again, we do everything possible to ensure that the dolphins are unharmed. Que nos conviene menos que pasa algo a los dolfinos.
The press officer turned on her heel and marched off. We were baffled. The true extent of the dolphin slaughter was apparently treated as a Mexican state secret. But then, suddenly, the tides turned. The observer was now prepared to talk because he trusted Alejandro, the former director of fisheries, and because we had promised him comprehensive informant protection. So we couldn't document the conversation on camera. Alejandro Villalobos attested to the eyewitness account.
He finally opened up because he trusts me. Yet he was still very tense, was constantly looking around as if somebody... Then he said, "Look, this is how it works. Every time many dolphins are killed, we keep quiet about it. We get a bonus for our silence. It's paid out at the end of every fishing trip, a certain sum."
How much?
He said enough for me to live well on. Up to $10,000 cash bonus for one fishing trip. Then I asked him how many dolphins die on one fishing trip. He said, "I can only speak about the ships I've been on, but it's more than 100 per trip, on every ship." Yes, dolphins.
100 per fishing trip. With 36 ships making several trips a year, that would mean around 16,000 dead dolphins every year. An official from the Fisheries Ministry confirmed this number to us confidentially. But the MSC maintains only 482 dolphins a year are killed.
Observers themselves have reported that they're intimidated or bribed. So I would think the data are not reliable, and I think the mortality is much, much higher.
A few incidences of attempts at bribe were reported. The certifier has to take this into account, has to consider whether this could have influenced the scores, and if they have any doubts, they can then conduct an immediate investigation. As far as we're aware, there was no evidence of bribes actually being accepted.
The MSC remains adamant. Collaborating with industry was the best way to arrive at strong and sustainable fishery practices.
MSC would like to bring fisheries into the programme and then relies on the independent assessment to determine whether or not it is sustainable. We have no preconceived ideas of what is or what isn't, but we have a growing evidence base, over 1,200 individual improvements that have been delivered by fisheries around the world that certification can lead to real and lasting changes in the way our oceans are fished. We have to be open to all fisheries, with the exception of those fisheries using explosives and poisons, because clearly it's hard to imagine how such an approach to fishing could be sustainable.
Our impression at the end of our journey through the world of the MSC. In practice, the stated standards of the Ecolabel are interpreted quite loosely. The MSC certifies both well-managed fisheries as well as those that ravage the seas and destroy marine ecosystems. 500 million cans of tuna fish for which dolphins were killed roll off the line in this factory every year, bearing a logo that will earn the MSC lucrative license fees, a certification seal meant to ease the conscience of consumers, seducing us into buying products that do not, in fact, deserve an eco-label. Dr. Daniel Pauly, who once helped initiate the MSC, sums up.
The MSC has two groups that it's supposed to represent, industry and conservation, and it doesn't represent both groups. It was created to do that, but it doesn't. So it has been captured. And nobody had anticipated that the MSC would be captured by industry. That's the only thing that explains the MSC behavior. Otherwise, you have to assume that they are stupid or that they are nasty. I don't think that they are stupid, and they are not nasty either. They have been captured.